everybody. We got a great one today, for a change. Jeremy Peters from the New York Times, one of my favorites. He's been doing these focus groups on uncommitted voters this election cycle. There are fewer and fewer of them these days, but still enough that they will probably settle this thing. After this last debate, looks like the one Trump-Harris debate, it appears that there's been some movement in Harris's favor, but, many a slip twixt cup and lip. But you have to admit that Harris's performance was quite impressive, and Trump much less so. Highlights, I like when Kamala pointed out that people are leaving Trump's rallies out of boredom, and he responded by saying, oh, yeah, well, she has to bus people in, and yeah, on top of that, she has to pay them to come. That's right. And of course, Trump bit on the Haitian immigrants eating the household pets of the good people of Springfield, Ohio. And how about those moderators, Lindsay Davis and David Muir? No, Mr. Trump, there is no state in the nation where you can execute a baby who's just been born. And how about that Taylor Swift? Who does she think she is? Urging her fans to register to vote. More than 400,000 did that just in the first 24 hours. 11,780 in Georgia alone, I think. Well, let's go to Jeremy Peters and a great one, for a change. Jeremy, thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
You've been doing this for the New York Times.
Yes, the Gray Lady.
When you say focus group, it's not like you gather a room full of people and call them. It's that you're keeping track of a certain number of people around the country.
Right. This is not the Frank Luntz style focus group you may have seen on television. It's reporters that we have in our bureaus across the country, from Las Vegas to Atlanta to Boston, you name it. They will have found people over the last several months who are not committed to one candidate or the other and regularly check in with these people.
When did this start?
Back in June. So it started right before Biden blew it in that first debate.
Okay. And then what was the reaction to the first debate?
It was really interesting because there was a mix of, I think, denial with people saying, I don't care, I'm still going to vote for him anyway. Anybody would be better than Trump. So it's like, I guess, denial and desperation. And then kind of a sinking feeling, like a pit in your stomach. Oh my God, we're going to lose.
Yep. That would describe my thoughts exactly. The process took me about 5 minutes, though.
Right?
I don't know if that's exactly accurate, but no, I was shocked. I was shocked by that performance, and I thought he would have to drop out.
Yes.
I thought at the time that it was inevitable, and then as he kept staying there, that's when I got particularly depressed and worried.
And it was surprising to me the lengths to which his campaign and his allies in the media tried to tell reporters like me and people with eyes like you that this didn't happen, that he was fine, when he so clearly was not the Biden of, forget about the Biden of 4 years ago, the Biden of 4 months ago.
That was a scary thing. My wife and I were watching, and the moment he walked out, we went, oh no. I mean, you could tell. Yeah,
you could totally tell. And I mean, as somebody who was in the Senate, you would know, like, that there was people who worked with Biden would say, like, I have this neighbor of mine who's one of your former colleagues in the Senate, and earlier on in the campaign, before the debate, I was talking to him. I said, "Is Biden's decline, you think, a real thing?" And he said to me, "Oh, he's always been like that." So there was, like, as you know, this element of, he rambles, he doesn't make sense, but this was a whole nother degree.
Yeah. Okay. So now this focus group was very happy when he pulled out, or at least the ones who were Democrats.
There was relief. I mean, just this really palpable sense of, oh, thank God. But also, I would say, kind of tinged with a sadness, especially among some of the older black voters that we talked to, who had a real fondness for him, still do, I should say, and were responsible in places like South Carolina for helping him secure the
Sure.
nomination when plenty of other Democrats were saying it's time to step aside and let somebody younger have at this. So there was a sense of how did it get to this point, and now he's going to exit this stage with this kind of asterisk on his his legacy. So people were it was mixed.
And that's something he's going to have to live with for the rest of his life, is that asterisk. But, at a certain point, if you can accept the fact that they were right, I was deteriorating in terms of my ability to do the job, and we did the right thing. Okay, well, let's go to now. The same people that you've been tracking since June. This last debate was pretty one-sided, I thought. And then I was pretty euphoric after it was over and thought she cleaned his clock. And yet, the focus groups I've seen have not shown a huge move to her.
Right. And I think that's due to a couple of things. One is just how few people are truly undecided at this point. Since, I don't know, the last couple of decades, really, the number of true battleground states and the pool of persuadable voters has just been getting smaller and smaller. And now it makes our job as reporters actually pretty difficult in finding these true undecideds. And what we've ended up having to do in some cases is going to people who are leaning, they're leaning toward Trump or they're leaning toward Harris, because those are the kinds of people who, lacking motivation or like a real fervor to show up at the polls might just stay home. And that obviously makes a difference. I mean, look, in Michigan, for example, in 2016, Hillary Clinton lost by 10,000 votes, and there were something like 100,000 people who voted, but just didn't vote at the top of the ticket.
They didn't vote at the top of the ballot.
Yeah.
And a lot of that was Detroit, wasn't it?
Yes. Yeah, exactly.
And so presumably a lot of them were black voters.
Mm-hmm.
And presumably kind of the stuff of super predators that she had called young black men came back to haunt her. That was the Trump campaign, and the Russians pounded that, right?
They sure did. And Trump had this kind of blunt appeal to them. Remember, it was Michigan where he said, that kind of infamous phrase of his, what the hell do you have to lose, in appealing to black voters. And as cynical and crass as that sounds, people, obviously not everybody, not every black voter, some found it offensive, but there were, enough people, and we know this anecdotally, who said to themselves, like, the Democratic Party really hasn't delivered much, and they have counted on the black vote to just automatically be there for it, and I'm sick of that. So there was, that didn't mean they pulled the lever for Trump, but some of them stayed home.
Okay, so up to now, let's talk about now and talk about maybe young voters, because I've seen data that suggests that they aren't going to Harris in the way that you might think that a slightly older contingent did in 4 years ago.
Yeah, that's right.
When they were their age.
That's right. And a lot of them have, the I hate to say it, but it's really the generational stereotype, I think, revealing itself here. Very much a sense of, what have you done for me? And they don't see either party. They're especially alienated from, partisan politics, but really alienated from the political system in general, that feeling that it really can't do anything for them. And one of the reasons, I actually had dinner with a group of university presidents last week, and we talked about the campus activism that we've seen over Israel and Gaza and what's at the root of that. And these university presidents were saying that this generation of students has, you have to remember, grown up at a time when they have faced these intractable global problems that make them feel powerless. Global warming, school shootings, they have drills. Like, this is, for someone like, for people like you and me, this is unimaginable. Like, having to flee the classroom and hide from somebody with an assault rifle in your school.
If you think about that, boy,
I can't.
Yeah.
It's awful. And just, but imagine, the point I'm trying to make here is, like, imagine the impact that has on somebody who, when they're, they grow up in that, and then they ultimately have to make a choice about who to vote for in election. And you can feel kind of helpless. Like, well, are either of these candidates really going to do something to change these problems that have gone unsolved for so long? And
does this generation have a different view of guns than previous generation? I mean, are they anti-assault weapon? Are they, because two issues that you would think that they would be ally with Democrats more would be that, and issues on school financing and trying to have relief on the loans and that kind of thing.
You're asking the right question. Is guns one of those cultural, social issues that is moving away from the Republican Party and conservatives? Just like, you see young people overwhelmingly being in favor of gay rights and action on climate change. With guns, though, I think my sense is it's such a tribal issue that even if you grow up and know of schools, peers of yours who've been in schools that have had these horrific events, or if you've even, like, experienced one yourself, I don't know that means that you would be in favor of stricter gun control, because it's such a tribal, personal issue, and it's so divisive. It almost becomes like a badge for people to signal, what team they're on.
What about abortion? I would think that young people have to react to the young men and women have to be looking at that and saying, that's not for me. I'm at an age where maybe I could use abortion services.
I think that's right, especially now that right has been taken away in so many states, because abortion public opinion was pretty steady for decades, split pretty much down the middle on whether or not you called yourself pro-choice or pro-life. Now, with the conservative Supreme Court having taken us so far in a restrictive direction, I think that is going, it could potentially be one of these generational turning points where you have like a whole cohort of young people now that see that as kind of like a marker in their political development.
Well, so the abortion, Taylor Swift,
right?
That should do it. I would think that would help with this demographic.
That would help.
Now, you can't say because you're with the New York Times, but did her endorsement of Harris influence your thinking at all?
You know what I think it did that was interesting to watch in real time, although completely predictable, is how it once again threw Trump into a spiral. Right. This is right. It was moments after the debate ended, if not during the debate, that Taylor Swift announced her endorsement. And here Trump is spinning like crazy. Oh, I didn't, I had the best debate maybe ever. Then he's asked about, okay, well, what about Taylor Swift? Because we know he wanted her endorsement. He said he thought he would get it a while back.
He put out a fake AI generated thing, which is amazing.
Yeah.
It's shocking that this stuff, and then people are going like, yeah, I like that guy.
Right. It's so he goes off on these self-indulgent, temper tantrum tirades, and it couldn't have, it was just like this pile-on effect, I think, of having a really bad debate and losing this big endorsement. It's one more element to add to this narrative that his campaign is really in trouble and he's losing.
I would have, that evening, I think the Taylor Swift thing would have been not the big blow. I think the performance at the debate would have been, I can't imagine him thinking that he was going to get Taylor Swift's endorsement at any point.
the level of delusion and denial at that level of politics in general, but also among Trump and his his inner circle, I think is something I would never underestimate.
So you told me that Fox reaction to this debate was very interesting because all of us who don't watch Fox or only sample it very occasionally kind of believe that they would show Biden spacing out. They even tried to show Harris doing that. They're incredibly biased, but most of them said Trump lost this debate, right?
Oh, it was pretty remarkable because they had no way on Fox and in the the broader right-wing media universe to say that Trump did well, because people could see with their own eyes that this was a bad night for him. It was pretty evident. So what do? Whenever Trump is losing, right, someone else is cheating. The system is rigged against him. They on Fox immediately they turn their ire on ABC News and they say the moderators weren't fair. They took 45 minutes to ask Kamala Harris about the flip-flops on policy that she's made. It was, Trump later comes out and says it was 3-on-1, the two moderators and Harris against him.
Oh, because they actually did some fact checking.
They actually did some data. They did their jobs, right? So,
and there was no rule, no fact checking. Did CNN have that rule for Dana Bash and Jake Tapper? Because they did no fact checking. But I thought the fact checking that Mir, I thought that he and Lindsay Davis did a great job.
Yeah, it was good. It was good. It was quick. It was accurate.
One of my favorite lies that he does is, and he keeps repeating this, is that Democrats allow abortions after a baby is born.
Right. It's preposterous. And she had a good answer for it. Democrats have struggled because I'm so glad you brought that up, because that moment is bigger than people realize. It goes back to 2016 when Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump were on the stage together. And remember, he said a version of that. He said, Hillary would let people, rip the baby out of the womb in the 9th month. And at that time, pro-life activists didn't talk like that. The pro-life movement in general was very skeptical of Trump. So hearing that come out of his mouth was part of his long and eventually successful process of wooing social and religious conservatives.
Well, that and pledging to appoint judges that the Federalist Society and the Heritage Foundation nominated. So
absolutely.
They would be getting anti-choice nominees.
And they had that in writing. Trump himself signed a pledge saying he would give social conservatives just that with these judges. They would overturn Roe v. Wade. So they had it in writing and they had it from his mouth on the debate stage. So, fast forward 8 years and he says, they would execute the baby, which is something he hasn't said, at least in a setting like that in front of 70 million people.
He has said it over and over again, though, at his rallies.
Yes, he has.
Yes.
But I think a lot of people were hearing it for the first time.
He said, I remember in some interview of him saying that they were doing that in Minnesota. And I think it was not long after Walz had been nominated that you can, after the baby is born, you can execute it.
Right. And this is just a stretching of the truth and like a distortion of this interview that the Democratic governor of Virginia did a few years ago that the right has just taken and run with. And they've been able to run with it. And it's stuck because Democrats have not done a good job of pushing back on it. Kamala Harris did just that the other night during the debate. And I think with that combined with her really, personal, visceral answer on abortion rights and her going after Donald Trump and, say, who are you?
I thought the bleeding out in the car, bleeding out.
Yes.
Was the right image. I thought that was particularly strong.
It was incredibly powerful. And you could tell that she felt that in her core. And that's why I think it was so effective. And that's when she really got her bearings in the debate. Initially, I would say she was a little shaky and didn't have the confidence that she had after that moment.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. It was kind of a transition in the debate.
Absolutely.
So right now it's still these battleground states, and those are, of course, Wisconsin, Michigan, Pennsylvania. Those are the blue wall states, and it's North Carolina. I'm doing this geographically.
Mm-hmm.
I have in my head Georgia, Arizona, and Nevada.
Mm-hmm. And, Nevada being one of the toughest ones for Democrats, again, shows just how a lot of traditionally Democratic constituencies, like, Hispanic working class voters have drifted away from the Democratic Party. But North Carolina is really interesting.
The Republican governor candidate is,
Oh, wow.
you wonder how a guy gets nominated to be governor with, he's pretty much a Hitler denier. I mean, he said that Hitler didn't, kill 6 million Jews. Right. That to me usually is, a kind of a, okay, you filled out the application. I see you filled in the circle that said Hitler didn't kill the Jews. Can we explain that? I mean, how do you, but he got it. And I think he's going to help bring this to Harris.
It's really remarkable. And this is what happens in a political party that is captured by a movement like MAGA that values the personality of the candidate and his or her ability to denigrate and beat down their opponents over their political skills and their sense of citizenship. This guy, Mark Robinson, is also the subject of a very interesting story by one of the local media outlets there in North Carolina that, he's very socially conservative, very religious, has, very almost like ancient biblical views on the roles that men and women should play in marriage. And apparently, according to this report, he was a frequent customer of a pornography shop for several years in the 90s. And this is just kind of one more embarrassing story, something that has put Republicans on the defensive in this state where they had been doing quite well, but may have really overreached in nominating a guy who's just unelectable in a state, with a split political system like North Carolina.
Has he been confronted with this evidence, or is he ignoring it, or is it widely known in North Carolina?
He's of course denied it and then tried to ignore it. You can guess, going back to what we were talking about, like the way conservative media distorts and ignores. So they don't even introduce a storyline like this for their audience to know about. So you think they're talking about this on conservative talk radio in North Carolina? Yeah, absolutely not.
What is Sinclair? Which is the kind of conservative TV. How widespread is that?
And radio, yeah.
Yeah. How widespread is that around the country?
Very.
It's pretty, yeah.
It's very extensive. It's the top-down control that, Sinclair executives have over what people watching local television see. It's very, very influential. So they can dictate, all right, you are going to run this kind of programming. You are going to have your anchors read this statement, which they've done in the past in a way that's been favorable, to Trump. Local news is, it's shrinking, but it remains incredibly, like a primary source of information, incredibly powerful, almost everywhere. And that's where the campaigns, actually, the presidential campaigns often focus a lot of their time, and it goes time and money and effort, and it goes unnoticed. But it's really how people help, make up their minds.
So where does the race go from here? I mean, we have a little less than 2 months left. Are they going to debate again? I think that she has said she wants to, and I don't see any reason why not.
Right.
And he is on the fence about it, or is he?
It's hard to tell, right? I mean, any given moment, it's a different answer, because he initially said, we're going to do another debate. Then I think once it sunk in that he didn't do so well. I don't know. And of course it's going to be the same old story. Well, they're going to be unfair to me, even though, he went out.
He wants this one to be on Fox. So
wants this one to be on Fox. Yeah, because Fox tried to have a debate earlier in September, and it ended up just being a town hall with Sean Hannity, I think, because Kamala Harris wouldn't agree to it. And I can't say that I blame her for that. But what's interesting, and what's going to be interesting to see, you ask, where does the campaign go from here? How many more media appearances does she do? Does she go on Fox News? Because this has been a bit of a question for her campaign as she tries to reach out to more centrist, undecided voters, right?
Right.
Listen to how she talked in the debate. She talked about owning a gun. She didn't take Trump's bait when the question came up of his denying that she's really black. She was, I think, positioning herself in a way that is designed to make voters who see her as the kind of caricature of a San Francisco left wing liberal feel more comfortable with voting for her. That this she's not what they've been told. And I don't know what kind of media she's going to be doing, but the Trump campaign is going to continue to hammer her over hiding from the press.
So she has to do something.
She has to do something, right?
She has to do maybe a press conference.
Yeah, exactly. And the criticism of her that she's been ducking these questions from the press is really the only one of Trump's attacks that I think is effective and makes her look like a weak candidate. The rest of them have just they've been casting about, trying to land punches, and they've all missed. I mean, look, how many nicknames has he tried to cycle through? There was Lion Kamala, Laughing Kamala, Comrade Kamala. Then he called her a Marxist the other night on the debate stage.
I love that. You're a Marxist. I'm trying to figure out who that works with. That's got to be people who are already his, I think.
I think so too.
Yeah.
I think maybe Republicans would say it helps them in a place like South Florida, where there are a lot of Cubans or Venezuelans for whom, Marxism has a very specific,
sure,
historical meaning to them and their community. But beyond that, it's just, it's another one of these very niche, ineffective, digs at Kamala Harris. That's just it shows you the difficulty that they have had with her and why he's so rattled that he can't his usual bag of tricks isn't working with her. And this nickname thing of his has always been a little bit of a superpower. It's everything from Lion Ted, Crooked Hillary, Pocahontas with Elizabeth Warren. These things stick, and nothing he's done for Kamala has worked.
Maybe some of his stuff is getting tired.
Right.
To the public.
Right. Yeah. It's like Elvis in his Reno phase. Fat Elvis in Reno.
Yeah. He's, I don't know. If he can't find a name for Kamala after so many tries, maybe that magic power is gone. Right.
And there are real questions about Trump's cognitive decline. He is up there.
Have you heard this thing where what's it called? Where weaving, where he claims that he is, his speeches tend to involve him going off into tangents that seemingly don't mean anything.
Yeah.
Like there's one where he's on a boat. He starts talking about, if I was on a boat, a big boat, and it crashed and the battery fell out and I fell into the water and there was a shark down there.
What is it with him and sharks, right?
He doesn't like sharks. He said, would I rather be electrocuted by the battery, which has a lot of energy in it, or eaten by the shark, or have to fight the shark? And I'd pick the battery every time. Okay, now that is something that's one of his tangents that he goes on. So he's been criticized for that, and he says that a lot of English professors around the country said what he's doing is called the weave, and that it's brilliant, and it's a literary device where you weave these things in that are seemingly unconnected. But then at the end, he connects them. But he actually doesn't. I mean, I don't know where the shark and the battery get woven in. But he has claimed that, and then people have asked him what university professors, and he hasn't answered that yet. You haven't heard about the weave.
Yeah. And I wonder if he could name a single one of his professors from college. I doubt it. But that's a perfect example of how not having Biden as an opponent has really unsettled him. Because first of all, his best material doesn't work. He can't call Biden old and senile. Remember, when I would go to his rallies, one of the biggest laugh lines was always when he would mock Joe Biden, do this impression of it, what day of the week is it? Where am I? And, it'd bring the house down. Now he can't do that. And the fact that he can't do that because he has a younger opponent, and, feistier opponent, draws attention to his own age and his own, inarguable, obvious decline from 8 years ago. He's not the same. His best material not only doesn't work anymore, it's not coming to him as quickly as it used to.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Well, that's the problem. So it's because that new material used to come to him pretty quickly.
It did. It was part of his whole, insult comedy act.
Did you like the part where she said that people are leaving your
that's
rallies?
True. That is really true. Every rally that I have been to, I would say probably since about 2018, people were leaving early. Now, there's a variety of reasons for that. The traffic jams getting out of those things is just hell because they're often
that speaks to how large the crowd is.
Yeah, but it's true. These digressions that he goes on, like you were just saying, the weaving, whether it's intentional and strategic or not, bores people. They're there for the insults and the comedy. And when he doesn't deliver that and he's gone, at, the hour mark, people start looking at their watches and say, do I really want to wait in that traffic for this? And they leave. I've seen it with my own eyes. And that was, I think, a great line of Kamala Harris's, that people are leaving your rallies early. And your generals, your advisors have called you a disgrace. That I thought was really powerful. As much as, she can make him the joke, that is something that will not only, I think, work really well with the few undecided voters that are out there, that he's unserious. He shouldn't be trusted with the presidency, that people don't respect him. That's going to be really powerful and I think persuasive with them. But it also gets in his head. And when you get in his head is when he makes these silly mistakes, when he goes on these digressions, when he talks about sharks, when he talks about people stealing pets and eating dogs and cats.
That was a beauty.
It really was, wasn't it?
So that's in Simpson, Ohio, in
Springfield. But
Springfield.
Yes, you're on the right track.
Yeah. In Springfield, Ohio, the Haitian immigrants are eating their cats and dogs. And J.D. Vance started that rumor. Is that it?
Yeah, so there's an interesting origin story here. Somebody, best I can tell, posted a picture on his Facebook page of a black person that may or may not have been a Haitian immigrant holding a dead goose. And he just said, things you see in Columbus. I believe it was Columbus. So it wasn't even Springfield. And this went viral, and as viral things often do, was distorted. And this turned into part of a conspiracy theory that Haitians were stealing your pets. And apparently there was one phone call, I think, that the Springfield police say that they got about someone stealing a goose, or not even stealing, because these things are not pets, they're wild, taking a goose from the local park, right? There was no Fluffy the cat. There was no Fido, the dog who was kidnapped. This was one goose, apparently. And it spun into this totally wild tale that I think adds to this bigger picture of Trump as just kind of a, comical and not in a good way candidate. And that's the one place, I think we were talking about Kamala, landing these punches on Trump in a way that he's not been able to land on her. That was one place I thought she had an opportunity when he went off on this incoherent, really weird, to use Tim Walz's rant about they're stealing pets and they're eating the dogs, they're eating the cats. I kind of wanted more from her on that. But maybe she was just as shocked as the rest.
But this is where the moderators did the right kind of fact checking, and they had called the city manager, I guess, and the city manager said, "No, this is not happening."
That's right.
Yeah. Well, thanks. This is more to come. Everyone goes. Seems like such a short race, and it is in a way. But still, it's almost 2 months, and a lot is going to happen. So thanks, Jeremy. I hope you can come back.
I'd love to.
Well, I hope you enjoyed listening. That beautiful music is by Leo Kottke, the great Leo Kottke. I want to thank Peter Ogburn for producing this podcast. We'll talk again next week.